Um, do you think you can hear me without the microphone?
Yes.
Okay, great. Because no, I can't. Really? Okay. I've been living for so long in Israel that I need my both hands for gesturing, but I'll try to do it with one hand. I apologize for my sister. She laughed very hard because I discovered I had a fork in my in my pocket. This was very funny, but
Yes.
yeah, sorry.
That was me.
Yeah. So thank you very much, Guy, for organizing this, and thank you, Ambassador, for inviting all of us. Yeah, especially in these times, it's hard, and I'll talk a little bit about that. Being in Israel, but it also has its advantages, and I'll leave on a high note, hopefully, optimistic note. I'll keep it light. I'll not talk much about my own research, a little bit. But I'll tell a little bit about myself, why I'm here, and well, I'll stay here. And what's the situation right now as an academic in Israel? Okay. I'm sure that some of you, have kids, and you may contemplate where your kids will study. I highly recommend to stay in Israel. Yeah. And thanks for the sign. Collaboration brings good chemistry. I do think it's the other way around. Good chemistry brings collaboration as a chemist. So yeah. Next slide. So I'll tell about myself afterwards. Just first, a few very important points. So I'm at Ben Gurion University. I've been here for 18 years already as a faculty member and as a professor. I have a research group. So I deal a lot with students. These particular students that you see here in their pictures, I don't know them personally, but they're in our neighboring faculty of Engineering Science. Unfortunately, a lot of BGU employees and students were killed on October 7th afterwards. Two of my friends, one in Nova and one in the army. 4 were kidnapped. Fortunately, one is now free. That's the next slide. And then a lot of employees and students were evacuated, and a lot of them are still evacuated, so that's hard for them. Also some of my friends. And the biggest challenge that we have as faculty members is dealing with all the reserve soldiers. We really try to help them as much as we can because they miss a lot of their studies. So actually some faculty members also have to do reserve duty, very few. But mostly the students, we have to accommodate them, help them as much as we can, but still we're trying to teach them something, and this is hard. But it can also be very rewarding. Yeah. So here I just want to point out that Noah Armanishi is probably one of the most famous ones that was freed by us. This was a very happy day and many of the dark days. And she's in the Department of Electro and Computer Engineering. She's a current student. I don't know how she will do, but of course we'll do our best to help her. So that's good. So yeah, a little bit about myself, just so you know who's talking to you. So I've been at Ben Gurion University since 2006. But by the way, I'm Dutch. I have to admit that. Actually, I have a lot in common with our ambassador. I studied in the same years at the same university, close at the Rutgers Island, chemistry. And I took a long time, also 6 years. But for me, it was simply because I was a very bad student. I was completely uninterested in studying the first years. I was only interested in running. I was a semi-professional athlete. That's all I cared about. But then fortunately in the last 2 years I got my act together and I got really enthusiastic about research. And then I decided to do a PhD in Israel, the Weizmann Institute. Another thing I have in common is that basically I'm a linguistic researcher in the sense that I study bacterial communication. Basically all my group's research has to do with how species talk to each other. Of course not by words like we do, but by chemical signals. So bacteria, they constantly assess each other and themselves, and they figure out where are they, how many are we, how many are the others, and how can we either prepare ourselves for battle or collaborate. And actually most of the time these communications are crucial for helping to collaborate. So most of the time actually bacteria collaborate with one another, and they help each other, and they ignore each other, and sometimes they compete with each other. So communication is key here. Without that, everything would go wrong. And the fact that you are all sitting here with good, health, most of, is a testament of the good communication happening in your bodies. it is the end result ultimately of a few billion years evolution, right? It's not simple. Now, we know currently very little about this. We know it's extremely important for the reason I just told you, but at the chemical level, we know very little. There are only very few chemists in the world that actually study these subjects because they're difficult, and most chemists, they like to reduce problems. I don't know why I do this, but I make myself very complicated because I study these very multi-species complex systems and try to figure out in these areas what's happening really. I will not tell you about our findings. You can read that in the 100 papers or so that we published, but if you want to. But that's what interests me. The way we do it, so I have a research group. I'm mentoring roughly 12 to 14 students most of the years. Currently my group is 13 students, mostly PhD students, a few master students. And we combine various fields from organic synthesis to microbiology, biochemistry and electrical chemistry. We do a little bit of everything, and these students have become very good. And my main goal as a mentor is to prepare them to become independent researchers. This will give me the greatest joy as a mentor, if I manage to do that. And actually several of my current graduate students that finished with me, they're currently doing postdocs in the US, and they definitely plan to come back to Israel. So hopefully that will work.
4 minutes.
Yes. And sometimes, of course, we do fun activities, right? It's important to encourage the communication, and this, usually we're not dressed like this, but this is in Purim. As you can see, most of the students in my group, they're female students. Somehow in the chemistry department we have a majority of female students, and then most of them decide to do research with me, so that's good. All right. That sounded bad, right? I'm Dutch, right? So let's skip this because I don't want to get too much in detail. What's important though, no, go back. Just, if you click on the image, yeah. Okay, you cannot hear this. So this is from one of my favorite movies with Paul Newman. That's How Old I Am. He basically says that to the prisoner Paul Newman that what's gone wrong with him in prison is that there is a failure to communicate with a very strong Southern accent. It's just a beautiful scene, that's why I want to show it. And that's really what it's all about. If the communication is good within the system, then usually it means the system is healthy. But we don't understand what makes it good. What are the chemical details, what are the molecules, what are the proteins? So that's what we're trying to figure out with all our efforts. Right?
It's like a marriage. It's like a marriage.
Exactly. It's exactly like a marriage, yeah, or any other relationship. So that's a nice segue that brings me to the problems that we have currently. Because ultimately, the way I see it, the problem, the mess that we're in right now, it's also the result of a failure to communicate on two levels. One is we did not figure out the signals, or we didn't interpret the signals that we were getting from Gaza and other places, right? We're not prepared. And second of all, the two-way communication between the two people is not right. If everything was correct, then I think we'd be in a much different situation. Now, I'm not a political scientist, so I'm not going there, but I think there's a lot of parallels between what happens in nature and the way we can learn from that. Right? Now, currently we have a lot of trouble at the university, that's probably no surprise to anybody, regarding teaching. We're trying to help students. Now, this is also sometimes very rewarding. Last semester I was in charge of a lab for third-year students, and one of the students, she was in Nova. She survived. She managed to actually help 3 other students to survive, to get out of there. She took them by the hands because she was the only one that was sober, and the other one's not. But she is traumatized, and she was actually, after that, she was even doing reserve duty. So she missed a lot of the lab, and I had really the honor to try to help her finish the lab, and she did it with honors, because she is a really, really good student. And this is extremely rewarding. If I, as a professor, can help the students in this way, you know, this is creating a lot of joy. Same problem we have with the research. Some of my students in my group, they were for half a year doing army service, several of my students, and I have to somehow figure out how to help them, how to get the research back on track. I do a lot of talking to them, and the same here. If I can have a positive impact, this is great. No, back, sorry. Yeah. I'll be done in 2 minutes. Conferences. It's probably no surprise that it's hard to organize a good conference these days. We like to host many foreign scientists. Usually, we have a lot of conferences. I organize at least once a year a conference. And now this is hard. People don't want to come to Israel for obvious reasons. We do have personal visits of our colleagues that still want to come, but it's much less. And this is, of course, hampering our research. And postdocs, they don't come these days. Very few, okay? But that's fine, we'll get over that. We'll mainly get over all of this with the solutions that we're used to. I mean, I've been for 18 years as a scientist in Israel, and we always had to deal with these problems. Now it's just much worse. Okay? But we'll get through it. Some of these solutions are simply, being Israeli, being resilient, knowing that you can deal with it because you have a lot of confidence, sometimes justified, sometimes not. Resistance, so, fight against the problems that we have, fight against the government if you want to. That's my personal opinion. And of course, make sure that you keep getting the support international. Just give you one example of that. There's some of the other academic activities that I'm engaged in, but never mind. This, by the way, is a Dutch. Can you go back? Very good Dutch friend of me from Leiden University. Very supportive of Israel. This was actually before October 7th. This was at one of the conferences that I organized. And I gave all the speakers a break of 10 minutes to participate in Revolve in a protest. So, never mind. Yeah, and this is another, he's one of the top scientists in the Netherlands, a top chemical biologist. Winner of the Year's Year Advanced Grant for those that know what that means. And he actually wrote a letter in the newsletter of the university at the TU Eindhoven, where he was very supportive of Israel, that it's absolutely crucial that we do not, or that they do not cut ties with Israel, specifically for the reasons that if in the Netherlands you want to support the moderate forces, and 90% of academics are very much in that area, then you don't want to abandon them, right? He got a lot of trouble with that, actually. Not a lot, but on social media, people didn't like what he said, but he doesn't care. So I'm very grateful to that, and we'll definitely invite him. Yeah. And of course, finally, very importantly, the university presidents, or the rectores magnifici, as you call them in the Netherlands, they wrote a letter saying that all of the universities do not want to abandon ties with Israel. This is very important, it's very encouraging for us. Not all countries in Europe, unfortunately, are like that, but most of the countries, they're very supportive. I was in Germany actually a few days ago, and in Munich, and there I felt a lot of support. Actually, in the main square of Munich, Marienplatz, I think it's called, there's a huge Israeli flag since October 7th. So we do have support, and we try to take some power from that. Yes, my sister says I have to stop because she knows me. If she doesn't do that, then I will not stop. But that's all I actually want to tell you. I am quite optimistic. I do think that ultimately we'll get to something good. I won't go into politics, not to bring our ambassador in trouble, but hopefully we'll get there next year.
Dutch politics wants trouble.
Oh, she wants hopefully next year we'll be over this and then have a much more fun talk. Okay. So thank you for listening.
Here, here.